Let us now discuss some concrete examples of the kind of active learning strategies that are used in classrooms. And I hope that you will get some ideas for your own classes as well. The most widely known active learning strategy, which perhaps a lot of us already use in our classrooms, is discussion. The advantage of discussion is the way in which students begin to get engaged, because they get a chance to hear their peers as well as to express their own opinion, which I believe is genuinely important for the generation today. They enjoy voicing their opinions. The only thing for us as educators, the challenges that come for us, is that we have to keep the discussion on topic. Also, that we have to conclude the discussion in a time limited fashion. If we are able to enhance our skills in doing these, discussions is one of the best ways of knowledge growth in today's times. Another strategy that comes under active learning is role playing, where students, either in small groups or pairs of students, take on hypothetical roles and enact them out. In psychology, one of the things that role playing is used for is to teach students counseling skills. So, in order to practice how to be a good counselor, how to respond to a client in a given situation, one student becomes the counselor, one becomes the client, and they enact the conversation out, a conversation which is centered around the problem that the client is having. The teacher then provides feedback on the conversation that was carried out between the counselor and the client, and thereby students really imbibe and learn what they could have done better. The third thing, which involves a lot of student energy and enthusiasm, is debates. Although I seldom hear of debates being used in our classrooms, actually, as far as teaching issues, which are somewhat contentious, or there is no clear-cut right and wrong answer to them, or where we want our students to see both perspectives, multiple perspectives in the situation, debates are a great idea. It's about dividing the class into smaller groups, letting each group work on their arguments, and then have the groups discuss their arguments with each other. If we apply ourselves, this can also be done through online platforms, especially Zoom, which gives the possibility of breakout rooms, and a physical space is not necessary to carry out debates. It does keep everyone energized, and debates are, I think, the best way to start thinking critically about issues. Some of the other strategies that I will be discussing in the subsequent slides are 1-minute paper reflections, pausing, and 3-step interviews. Finally, the use of case studies, particularly for discussing, say, ethical dilemmas, or and opportunities for peer collaboration, are also within the purview of active learning strategies. Now, for example, in terms of case studies, just to give you an example of what I do in my classroom. When we teach the topic of moral development to students, there is a theory called Kohlberg's theory of moral development. Instead of teaching the theory first, I present a case in class, a case that Kohlberg used in his initial research for his theory, which is known as the Heinz dilemma. The case of Heinz goes like this, that Heinz lived in Europe and his wife was very unwell. In order to save her, there was only one drug that would work, and only one pharmacist had it. Heinz went to him asking for the drug, but the pharmacist was selling it at a very, very high price. Although Heinz tried to negotiate the price with him, the pharmacist would not lower the price. Ultimately, seeing no other choice for saving his wife, Heinz stole the drug. The question is, did Heinz do the right thing? Was stealing in order to save his wife's life the right thing to do. I'm sure all the psychology teachers in this group would be knowing the Heinz dilemma. I first present this and I collect students' responses on it. And only after that do I present the theory. As I present the theory, I also connect students' responses to the theory for them to estimate which stage of the theory they fall in. Once the theory is presented to them like that, once they can fit their own responses into the theory, then the chances of forgetting the theory are very slim. In fact, students also understand the real life application of the theory because their own responses have now been connected to the theoretical framework. Hence, using examples like this makes the class interesting and also ensures that the learning is retained. As far as peer collaboration is concerned, I will be coming back to that later in the presentation. Within active learning strategies also comes in the concept of the flipped classroom. To flip means to invert, to turn over. What do we mean by a flipped classroom? What does it mean to turn a classroom over? For this, we have to understand what a traditional classroom is like. Then we can only understand what it means to flip it over. So in a traditional classroom, we know that as instructors, we prepare the material that is to be delivered in class. Students come, we provide the lecture, we provide the instruction, the students take down notes. And then in order to assess their understanding, we give some kind of homework on what we have taught. Now, let's flip this over. Let's turn this around. In a flipped classroom, we first record and share our lectures prior to class. We give reading material prior to class. Students have to watch and listen to those lectures before they come. And then the class time is devoted to applying activities and higher order thinking to whatever the students read or saw. And of course, the teacher is not passive in this whole process. As we get the students to think about what they read, what they saw before they came into class, we also provide support wherever needed. So by flipping, I meant that here students do preparatory work, watch the lecture, and then come back to our classrooms with their questions, their observations, and moreover, when they come, we also provoke them to think further about what they read and what they saw. Flipped classrooms is a great idea. One of the senior faculty members in my department mentioned the idea to our students. They were quite excited about it. For flipped classrooms to work, there are two main challenges involved for us as educators. One, that students should feel accountable for completing the pre-class assignment. Because unless they are reading and coming, unless they are watching and coming, we will not be able to do much in our flipped classroom. How we have to create student accountability is really up to us. We may request and motivate our students to read, or we may have to connect it to some kind of grading or evaluation. But the feeling of accountability has to be generated. The other is that once students read and come, we as teachers have to create the space for students to apply and discuss the content that they went through. Hence, a flipped classroom in no way means that we just leave everything for self-study. Rather, class by class, students study the material, and when they come back to class, we work on the material together. So there is work on the student part and there is active engagement on our part once they are back in the classroom. That is broadly the essence of a flipped classroom, and it is very much part of active learning strategies. I'm sure it would offer a few hiccups in the beginning. It would offer a few challenges and would require practice. But if not all the time, certainly once a week, we can try the flipped classroom with our students. Now, what are some of the other terms that are associated with active learning? So if you will see, active learning is overlapping with some other concepts that you will find in the educational field. One of them is student-centered learning. Student-centered learning is any learning where we put students' interests first, which I am sure you and I as teachers try our best to do. A student-centered learning is about providing students more choice in what they will learn, the pace of learning, and in the assessment of their own learning. So student-centered learning would be where I teach a particular topic to students, and then instead of deciding what assignment they will do to assess their knowledge, I let them design their own assignment. Here students decide how they will showcase what they have learned. So active learning overlaps with this kind of student-centered learning, which is based on choice for students. Although we cannot give absolute choice to our students, we can see and identify certain pockets in which choices can be created. The second term that is associated with active learning is inquiry-based or discovery learning. In inquiry-based learning, we encourage learning by asking students to inquire, to discover, to ask questions, to look for information, to analyze it, and then to present their conclusions to us. And as they do this, we can always share our feedback with them. The third term, which is associated with active learning, is called experiential learning, in which we allow students to learn directly from experience. Perhaps we can get them to engage in certain activities during online class. So a stress reduction activity during online class, something like progressive muscle relaxation, in which we do a relaxation exercise with our students. If we are discussing stress management in class, we could do a guided meditation together. As children experience those things, they learn directly from experience, and that learning stays with them. The prototypical example of experiential learning is field trips, where we take students out, ask them to observe whatever they want to, see what they want to, and then come and discuss their observations with us. Unfortunately, during these times, field visits are not possible, but certainly any activity that you do in class, such as the ones I just mentioned, are part of experiential learning and come very close to the idea of active learning.